Hello, whistlers everywhere. So today I'm going to take a look at reading music, reading sheet music. Um, it's useful for several different reasons. Oftentimes you'll find tunes that haven't been transcribed into tab, um, so it's opening up the opportunity to learn perhaps different tunes. It's also good to help you remember maybe how tunes that you learnt a while ago and perhaps you're not quite sure about little bits and pieces about how they go. You can always just have a look at the first few bars, and that's what sometimes I do if I haven't played a tune for a while. I'll maybe have a look at the first few bars of a tune and see how they go with the music. Learning by ear is great and it's highly recommended, but I'm a great believer in using whatever works best for you, and it might be learning by ear, or it might be learning through music, or it might be a combination of both. And different people have different learning styles, and those different learning styles are important because it means that you don't have to rely on just one method. Traditional music, yes, often is what we call an oral tradition of things were learnt by ear, um, but it might not work for everybody. And I know a lot of traditional musicians are phenomenal at learning tunes by ear, and you can play it once or twice and they'll have it. Um, and it's a great skill, as I said, to develop, and I recommend you do develop learning by ear because um, it saves a lot of time, and sometimes you might not always have the sheet music on hand. However, there's also a lot of great traditional musicians, sorry, who can read music very well, and it's a useful skill. Um, it's useful in a number of different ways, and sometimes it can help with memorizing a tune. Sometimes if you have a visual, and I know some people learn better visually than by using their ear. Sometimes if you have a visual kind of representation of what the tune goes like, it helps to learn it quicker and easier. Um, Again, it's not a good idea just to rely on music per se and just read the music every time you're going to play. That's not kind of the idea of learning to read music for that purpose. Um, it's another aid to helping you learn a tune. And once you've learned it from the music, then you can learn your ornamentation, you can listen to how other people play that tune, and you can get ideas and combine it with learning stuff using your ears as opposed to just being able to read. Although it's not essential, I think reading music is a useful skill to have. So, with that being said, if we look at the basics of music and what the written music is giving you in terms of information, there are a number of different things, even prior to reading the notes. And certainly for a D whistle, and this is what I'm going to be talking about for a D whistle, um, and in the key of D or G or the relative minors that you might be able to use on that whistle, but you'll generally find what's called two key signatures on a D whistle. You'll find the key of D, which is two sharps, which is F sharp and C sharp, or the key of G, which is just an F sharp. Now, don't worry too much about what sharps are. We'll cover that in a little bit. The most important thing to start off doing is to learn where the notes are on the stave. Now, the stave is the 5 lines which the music are written on, and how they relate to the notes on the whistle. And that's always a good starting point. One of the big setbacks for people when they first try to learn how to read music is that they try and do too much too quickly and overload, and it's very easy to overload with things which at the first beginning stage isn't necessary. So what I'm going to do is in this first video is we're going to just have a look at the notes in the first register. So that's going from the very bottom note, which is D, and we'll go up to the first D in the first register. So we're just going to do with the notes going from D just up to there. I find that when I'm teaching about music theory and about how to read music, it's always good to try and break it down into smaller sections so that people don't get too overwhelmed with the intricacies of various different parts of reading music. So first and foremost, even before you start looking at the notes on the stave, and the stave is just the 5 lines which the music is written on, you'll notice that there's a symbol which is called a treble clef. Now, you'll all have seen the symbol. Now, the treble clef is also known as the G clef, and all whistle music is written in the treble clef. Even though the whistle music that you play on a standard high D whistle sounds an octave higher than it's written, for ease of reading, we read everything in the treble clef, and even though it sounds an octave higher, we still read it as it's written. So in that respect, the high D whistle is kind of a transposing instrument because it transposes everything up an octave. So the D that you play on your whistle, the low D, even though you're reading it as the D below the first line, actually sounds as the D on the 4th line of the treble clef. Now, don't worry too much about this. Just understand that what you're playing on a D whistle in relation to the notes that you play, it will just sound an octave higher, but that's not an issue because all whistle music is written in this way. So first and foremost, the stave, which is the 5 lines which music is written on, and the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. 7 notes which you need to learn first and foremost. So if we start with the first note, the first bottom D. So first bottom D is written on the below the first line of the stave. Okay, so bottom D, all fingers down. So that equates to the first note on the whistle, the D, and the D looks like it's just written underneath, directly below the first line of the stave, going from bottom to top. So we read from bottom to top, low to high. So the first line, just underneath it, there we have the bottom note D. All fingers down, like so. So going up the whistle, the next note we want is the note E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what E looks like on the stave is it's the first line or the bottom line of the stave and sounds. Then the next note is F sharp. Now it's F sharp and not F because of our key signature of D major. So our key signature says that every time we play an F, unless it's written, it's going to sound as an F sharp. And so that's going to be the first space on the stave. And so the next note, G, is going to be the second line on the stave. And that's 1, 2, 3. The next note A. So that's going to be the second space on the stave. The next note, B, is going to be the third line or the middle line on the stave. And so the next note, C sharp, everything off, is going to be the third space. And finally, on our scale of D, we're going up to the middle D, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top finger off. And that's going to be the fourth line on the stave. So there's one other note which we're going to look at in this first part, which is the C natural. Now, we've talked before about the various fingerings for C natural. So if you're playing in the key of G, which is 1 sharp, which is F sharp, our C is, unless told otherwise, is played as a C natural. So our C natural could be this, or on this whistle. Again, refer to my previous video on playing C naturals. So C natural will be, again, the third space on the stave. So whether or not you play a C sharp or a C natural is determined by two things. First being the key signature. So in the key of D, if you have 2 sharps, an F sharp and a C sharp, you will automatically play a C sharp, which is all the fingers off. If you're in the key of G, which has got 1 sharp after the treble clef, then you will be automatically play it as a C natural. The only other time this will change is if you are given direction to do so in the music. So if you're playing in the key of G and you see a sharp sign next to the C, you will play it as a C sharp rather than a C natural. And if you're in the key of D and you see a natural sign next to the C, you will play it as a C natural. And I'll show you what these signs look like, but I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with what a sharp and a natural sign looks like. So yeah, starting basically is important. And even if you just learn the first octave of what the notes look like on the stave and where they relate to on the whistle, then that's a really important step which you can take. It's a good idea to try not to overload your learning and learn everything in one go. And another thing which you can practice is just looking at whatever music. I'd suggest it's fairly simple music, and try and pick out the notes in the music and see where they relate to the notes and the fingers on the whistle. It's good practice, and like anything, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So if you take a simple tune, maybe a polka or something like that, or maybe an air, and just try and pick out the notes on the whistle and how the notes on the stave relate to the fingerings and the notes where they lie on the whistle. Even just in the first octave, that's a really important step which you can take. So music, written music, gives you two important pieces of information, and the two most basic pieces of information that the written music is giving you is pitch, how high or how low the note is, and the other part of information is rhythm, how quickly, how slowly, how you count, and that's going to be in another video which I'm going to do at a later date. So do not worry about rhythm, do not worry about the notes above middle D. We will get to those in the next video. So basically, what you need to take away from this video is the concept that notes are written on the stave, the idea that the notes that are written on the stave relate to the notes on your whistle and the fingerings thereof. And once you can combine those, practice looking at some simple music and identifying those notes and what they relate to on the whistle. You don't even have to blow the whistle. Yeah, you can look at a note, say you've got a small passage which is written down. It might be a D, an A, a B, an E, a G, and back to D again. So try and look at the music and see if you can learn where the notes are on the whistle. And that would be a really useful practice to do, just in the first instance. I will put up some visuals and give you some visuals to have a look at the end of the video. But for now, if you can just try and find the notes on the whistle and identify them to what they look like with notes on the stave. Okay, well, good luck with it all, whistlers, and I shall see you for part 2, where we go up into the second register and we look at the notes on the stave and how they relate to notes on the whistle in the second register. So I shall see you all very shortly. Okay, so now you've had a go at learning the notes on the whistle and the notes on the stave. See if you can find the notes on this tune. It's called the Kerry Polka, or it's also known as Egan's Polka, which I'll play for you now.